We're going to call our February 8th, 2017 regular assembly meeting to order. If you'll please join me in the non-sectarian invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise with me. Tonight I'm reminded that we are all here because we love our families and community and want them to be healthy, happy, and prosperous. Further, that while we may be in disagreement about how to accomplish our shared goals of healthy, happy families and communities, we indeed all are working toward that end. And it reminds me of something Dr. Kissinger said. Begin with knowledge, move to understanding, and then make a decision. Tonight, let us all do our best to start with the basis of knowledge, ensure we understand what is being said or presented, then move to decision-making. And in disagreement, remember that we are all motivated by the same goals, strong, healthy families and a strong, healthy Fairbanks. Thank you. Flag is back there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to note for the record that Mr. Gray is excused and Mr. Cooper is going to be late this evening. Mr. Lojewski? Here. Mr. Quist?
Here.
Mr. Tackey? Here. Major?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Lawrence?
Here.
And we have North Pole City Rep. Mr. Isaacson?
Here.
And Ms. Dodge. Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We're going to do a brief safety announcement. We just want everybody to know, in case of an emergency, how to get out of our chambers. So we can go out the door we came in, of course, and go straight through. We can also go out the side door over here by that flag, by American flag. And then there's a side door over here that we can go out by the Alaska flag. So, Mayor Castle, I understand that we have an Employee of the Month proclamation.
Yes, we do. I would like to come up front and present that.
Thank you. Please do.
So it is Employee of the Month time. Every month we do this. Employees that work here at the borough choose a fellow employee that they think is exemplary and provides a high level of service and is fun to work with. I like the award because I'm not the one who picks it. I just get the pleasure of giving it out to some pretty exemplary employees. So with that, I'd like to read this proclamation recognizing this month's Employee of the Month. So each month, employees of Fairbanks North Star Borough nominate a fellow employee to be recognized as Employee of the Month. And whereas Caleb Bizarro, Rec Specialist 1 in the Parks and Rec Department, began his employment in the Fairbanks North Star Borough in August 2015. And whereas in his position, Caleb, without fail, exceeds all expectations in providing unparalleled service to the Parks and Rec patrons and the user groups there. Whereas Caleb has proven himself to be motivated, knowledgeable, and hardworking, he's a true asset to the Fairbanks North Star Borough. That's more than just our operation, but the whole borough community. Whereas Caleb strives for excellence, displaying unmatched initiative and a strong sense of responsibility, which is evident in the exceptional quality of all his work. And whereas Caleb is an ardent team player who's known to be diligent, productive, industrious, and dependable in everything he does. And whereas Caleb's coworkers have expressed their immense appreciation for his phenomenal attitude, he always has a smile and a good word for everyone. Now, therefore, I, Carl W. Castle, Mayor of the Fairbanks North Star Borough, by the authority invested in me, do hereby proclaim Caleb Bizarro Employee of the Month for February 2018. Congratulations. I have a whole lot to say. Thank you. Honestly, I'm just touched. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. The whole community appreciates your service. Thanks, Caleb.
Thank you, Caleb. We too appreciate your service and wish you congratulations on being selected for the Employee of the Month. Okay, that takes us on to a request for removal of items from the consent agenda and any other procedural motions. Is there anyone that wishes to pull anything? Yes, Mr. Lojewski.
Resolution 2018-05.
Okay, 2018-05. Let me get there and I'll read it into the record. 2018-05, a resolution of support for Costco Wholesale Corporation opening a store in the Fairbanks, probably should say area. Sponsors Assembly Members Dodge, Gray, and Cooper. Has been pulled from the consent agenda. Anything else that anyone wishes to pull? Seeing none, that resolution is pulled, and then we will now move to, does anyone need to declare a possible conflict of interest for items on the consent agenda? See no one indicating that they have a conflict of interest. So that's going to take us to citizens' comments. And we have two types of citizens' comments. We have one which is on agenda items not available for public hearing, and we have one that is on anything not on the agenda. So we start with the first one, which we call A, and I'm going to open citizens' comments A, and this is for citizens that wish to speak on items not scheduled for public hearing, such as memorandums, bid awards, unfinished business, resolutions or ordinances being advanced for public hearing on a different date. I have one person signed up, and that's Richard Thielman. And if there's anyone else that wishes to speak on items on the agenda but not up for public comment, please take the other seat. Mr. Thielman, your name and address for the record, please. You'll have 3 minutes.
Richard Thielman, 658 Fairbanks Street, Apartment B17, 99709, in this great city of Fairbanks. I'd like to comment about electrostatic particulate smoke eliminators. I want the Assembly to be mindful of this item on the February 15th. I know you're having a working committee. It works. It's been around for 30 years. I remember back in the day when I was in a construction trailer, and this is a day when people used to smoke at their desk. We had those boxes on top of the ceiling. We cleaned them out once a month, and we just vacuum and wash the foam filter, and then we use the power washer with just soap and water, and clean the electronics, and then we used the air compressor to dry it out, but you could use a hairdryer. And it took about 3 hours for us to take it down and put it back up. And in that 3 hours, that construction trailer stunk. And within 30 minutes, the smoke was gone. This stuff is old technology. It's been around there. I talked to Nick in air quality control today, and we compared notes about that. He went, yeah, I remember that. They used those little boxes up there. Right now, we're talking about putting them in the stacks. This is technology that's been around, and it's relatively inexpensive, mindful of our citizens that are land rich and cash poor. So it takes money to put these things in, but a lot less than catalytic converters. From what I know about catalytic converters, they are designed specifically for the particulate or the chemical you're trying to eliminate. Go try put unleaded gas in your car, right? It hiccups. It gives you a hard time. So this is possibly a catalytic converter that has to take care of wood smoke. Maybe it's a 2-stage converter. Maybe it's a 3-stage converter. Point is, we are pushing the envelope of technology with catalytic converters. I'm not saying that they don't work. They do. Short answer. Do they work better than electrostatic eliminators? Yes. The long answer, perhaps. Electrostatic eliminators are a lot cheaper, a lot easier to maintain. There's no reason why we can't set up a system, whereas once a month, Air Quality Control calls up the customer and says, hey, let me schedule you for a cleaning this month. This all can be done. The devil is in the details. The difficult part is done. The technology exists. The hard part is the political will to do it. There are many ways to go figure out how to do this. And that's why we elected you all. From what I see, and for the few meetings that I've attended, you people on this assembly have the resolve, have the intelligence, have the capability to figure this out. And I know I'm going over time, but if I could just finish up. I want to praise our Air Quality Control Department. I think they're doing a heck of a good job given all the stuff. I also want to praise every one of you, because I've been on the receiving end. I volunteer at GVEA as a member advisory committee. And there are times after a meeting I'm wearing my vest and I go for a beer, and boy, do I get clobbered. You're with GVEA! Let me tell you! And you can fill in the blanks of the Excel deleted.
Mr.
Right? So
Chairman.
I know.
Thank you.
Right? If there are any questions?
I bet there are. Let's just see, though. Yes, Mr. Lawrence.
Well, Ms. Philman, you indicated that you used to work in a trailer where a lot of people smoked, and you had this, what was an ESP on top of the ceiling,
That's correct.
and it
It lasted about a month, and then you had to clean it.
and to clean it, and you could tell the difference when it was down,
Oh,
and then it just, all right,
you got 10 guys smoking away in a small trailer. Yeah. And I'm a non-smoker, so yeah.
okay. Who were you working for at the time?
I was working for Grumman Aerospace at the time, and we were at a field site in Lantana, Florida. And we had all these construction trailers set up. This is back in the late 80s, and everybody smoked at the desk.
Right. All right. Well, if we can handle that, it might do us some good. Thank you.
Mr. Quist.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. You referred to electrostatic eliminators. Is that something that's the same as an electrostatic precipitator, or can you?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Got many different language for the same box.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming down and educating us.
Okay. And good
your
work,
passion.
everybody.
Anyone else that wishes to speak on items on the agenda not available for public hearing? Seeing none, I'm going to close that public hearing. And then I'm going to open citizens' comments B. And this is the section where you can speak on anything not on the agenda at all. I have 2 people signed up. I have Gary Evans and Morgan Evans. If you'd like to come forward and give us your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes. And it looks like we may have an empty seat. So if someone else wishes to come forward and speak about items that are on the agenda not available for public comment, no, that are not anywhere on the agenda, come on up. Mr. Evans, your name and address for the record, please.
Gary Evans, 125 Kenneth Street, Fairbanks, Alaska 99712. I came up here to address you guys today to bring to light something that is not getting much light in regards to state marijuana licensing. The short and curlies of it is they have one person right now processing all the licenses for the state of Alaska for marijuana. We've had our license application in for second retail since October, and they're just now getting to it in the end review process. We're next in the queue, and even then they said we may not make the April meeting they're going to have. And I know we're not the only ones battling this. In the Fairbanks North Shore Borough, the Planning Commission and the Assembly here has done a great job of pushing these licenses through, get them through within their legal bounds, unbiasedly, I believe. But there's a lot of money riding on these, and at this rate, there's probably 60 people behind me just in the under review process. That you're looking at years just for that at this rate. From my understanding, they have these spots open. They just need more funding to allocate to make it more appeasable to fill them for people to process these applications. There's people right now in these queues that have $500,000 to even more money invested in waiting on the state of Alaska to process these. And for as much money as we allocate in processing fees and everything else, to have one woman in there is pretty unacceptable. And I'm meeting tomorrow with some of the directors of the local board of the AMIA chapter to get together an all-inclusive kind of opinion on this and try to get stuff flowing. I'm going to try to hit from the top down and from the bottom up in the state legislature to get things moving on here. So I guess what I think we're going to need from the Assembly, and I spoke with the city mayor today, is just kind of a push from you guys. I know you have legal bounds as what you can push for, but these grievances within the next week, there's a lot of people that just haven't said anything. We're going to need a push from the borough and the city of Fairbanks just to address the state, saying why is this taking so long? But I don't know what you guys can do as far as an assembly goes in order to put pressure on the state to fill these spots in order to improve this licensing process for so many people involved. Before we opened up our retail on gas station 49 at the corner of Cushman and Airport, before we had license in hand, we paid almost $60,000 in leases. And I'm doing the same thing for 2 more locations that are years out at this rate. Businesses will go out of business before they're in business if the state doesn't pick things up. And that's your contractors. I mean, we've had probably almost $40,000 in electrical work done at just our one location. We're dumping hundreds of thousands of dollars into these other 2 locations, and the ancillary things that go with that. And I know we're not the only ones that are aggravated with the state right now. But that's pretty much a short curly. I've got numbers, but you guys have heard the numbers that this industry projects over and over, so I don't need to go into it. But that's my grievance.
Let's see if we have some questions. Mr. Lawrence.
Mr. Evans, you stated that there's just one person handling the licensing of marijuana licenses now. That you said there were more positions open but unfunded, or what's your understanding?
Correct. So there are positions open and allocated, but by the sounds of it, they had 2 or 3 paralegals before helping her. But because the pay was so low and the workload was so high, they quit.
And now those pay wages have not changed. They need to be up in order to incentivize people to want to do this. And for as much money as we pay into it, you can pay those. I would give them 5 to 10 grand right now just to get my license work through tomorrow. And that's a demand, and I'm not the only one that has to think like that.
So there is funding available for more positions, at least for paralegal positions, but they're not filled because it's such a low pay, from your understanding.
Yes.
All right. Well, do you understand that basically the legislature is where you need to focus most of your effort with?
I do. I've heard that from a lot of people. We just need more voice and more push. I'm one guy, and I'm working on rallying that up. But we could use help from our municipal governments. The city of Fairbanks, the borough of Fairbanks, Anchorage, Kenai. No one's making any noise over it, so nothing will become of it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Evans? Seeing none, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming down, and good luck. We hope you hear about your license. Anyone else wishing to speak on items not on the agenda? Please give us your name and address for the record.
Morgan Evans, 125 Kenneth Street, Fairbanks. I was going to talk about the same thing Gary was kind of talking about, little numbers. These are state numbers. If a car manufacturer come into Fairbanks or come into the state and said we're going to employ 5,000 people jump through hoops to get it going. Because the state looks at it now, there's 881, I think, applications on there, and the state figures are 6 people per application that gets hired. That's $139 million a year at $15 an hour, $40 a week. That is just for that. That's more than Fort Knox. That's more than any of them. I don't know why anybody's not jumping on the bandwagon to help with this or do something. I mean, most people don't know that this is going on through the state. That's a lot. I mean, that's $139 million a year, not counting the residual money for the contractors, this and that and this and that. Yeah, that's just a lot of money generated for this area, and just for your guys' help to, I don't know if you can write a letter or figure out what's going on with that. I don't know, but that's kind of where I'm looking at it from, is a job point of view. And plus, people's got hundreds of thousands of dollars wrapped up. Like Gary was saying, he's paying $10,000 a month rent right now with buildings he can't even do anything with, and it's looking like a year or 2 years the way that it's moving. And it's revenue for you guys. One of the places is Cripple Creek Tire. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Just with that, they're putting a store in there. It's going to be a new building. It's going to look beautiful when you come into town. It looked like an eyesore for years and years, and it's new siding, new everything. Brings a new revenue to the borough. The taxes are going to be higher, so on and so forth. There's just a lot of different little things, but just from the wages, like I said, the $139 million in the state, and just in license revenue, it's $5,000 a year, generates over $4 million for the state, which divvies out to the community too. Just in license renewals, over $4 million a year for that. So, and also you're getting 5%. So he's got 2 stores that's not open. And the one store he has now is in the city, and he's paying the state $240,000 a year. That's $500,000 a year you guys are missing out on the other 2 stores, that potentially with the other 2 stores in the borough. So it's not just him missing out, or everybody, not just him, but everybody in the state is missing out. And like I said, that's $500,000 a year that'll go to the borough. That's taking so long, and that's just 2 extra stores. Once the numbers that's going, off the other one, of course, and plus other stores that are going in, and so on and so forth. So it's a lot of money that you guys are missing out on. So that's it.
Thank you. Let's see if there are questions for you.
Any question?
Any questions for Mr. Evans? Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming down, and hope that gets resolved. Anyone else wish to speak about items not on the agenda at all? Seeing none, we're going to close those comments, and we're going to move to approval of the consent agenda. The agenda and consent agenda. Approval of the consent agenda passes all routine items indicated by an asterisk on the agenda. Consent agenda items are not considered separately unless an assembly member so requests. In the event of such a request, the item is returned to the general agenda. Does anyone need to declare a possible conflict of interest for items on the consent agenda? I see no one raising their hand. Are there any other items to be removed from the consent agenda before it's read? I don't see anyone raising their hand. Clerk, would you please read the consent agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Under approval of minutes, regular assembly meeting minutes of January 11th, 2018, regular assembly meeting minutes of January 25th, 2018. Communications to the assembly. We have a memorandum from Mayor Castle recommending the appointment of Nicole Eisman to the Library Commission. We have a memorandum from Mayor Castle recommending the appointment of Leslie Kitchen to the Trials Advisory Commission. Under consideration of calendar new business resolutions, we removed from the consent agenda 2018-05. We have Resolution 2018-06, a resolution supporting Senate Bill 125 and House Bill 261 relating to the financing and issuance of bonds for a liquefied natural gas production system and natural gas distribution system. The sponsors are Assembly Members Lajewski, Dodge, and Major. Resolution number 2018-07, the resolution supporting Senate Bill 86 regarding the Alaska Railroad Corporation land. The sponsors are Mayor Castle and Assembly Member Dodge. Consideration of calendar new business, ordinance to be introduced, advanced to a public hearing. We have ordinance 2017-72 and ordinance repealing Fairbanks North Starborough Code Title 4.68, Landscape Review Board, and amending Fairbanks North Starborough Code Title 18 to amend and clarify the landscape plan review and approval process. The sponsor is Mayor Castle. Refer to the Committee of the Whole on February 15th, 2018, advanced to February 22nd, 2018 for public hearing. We have ordinance 2017-20-1T, an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2017-18 budget by appropriating $104,070 from the General Fund to the Capital Projects Fund for the match to the restroom replacement and access improvements project at Chena Lakes Recreation Area. The sponsor is Mayor Castle. Refer to the Finance Committee on February 15th, 2018, advanced to February 22nd, 2018 for public hearing. And that concludes your consent agenda.
Thank you very much. I'm looking for a motion to
Move to adopt the consent agenda and agenda.
second. So it's been moved by Mr. Lawrence and seconded by Mr. Tackey to approve the consent agenda. Is there any objection to the consent agenda as read? Seeing none, we will move on to communications to the Assembly. So we're going to, we have a memo from me, from Catherine Dodge, Fairbanks North Starborough Presiding Officer, regarding Assembly appointments and reappointments to the Board of Education. It's on page 38. and these board members are appointed by the Assembly. So currently, the Board of Equalization, otherwise known as BOE, has 2 regular board member vacancies with terms ending December 31st, 2020. There are 3 interested applicants for consideration. One is Mr. Mayo, who has submitted an application for reappointment as a regular board member. One is Mr. Beck. He is currently an alternate board member, and he has expressed interest in moving from an alternate board member to a regular board member. And there's Mr. Dzinski, and he has applied to serve on the board in either capacity. So should the Assembly support alternate board member Mr. Beck to a regular board member position, there would be a vacancy of the alternate board member with a term ending in 2019. So the proper motion for appointment of a regular board member is move to appoint whomever to the Board of Equalization as a regular board member with a term ending December 31, 2020. And a proper motion for appointment of an alternate board member will be move to appoint whomever to the Board of Equalization as an alternate board member with a term ending December 31, 2019. So I look for a motion for a regular appointee member term ending December 31, 2020.
I move for a regular appointee, I move to appoint James Mayo to the Board of Equalization as a regular board member with a term ending December 31st, 2020.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
So there were a couple of seconds. Was that you, Mr. Roberts? Thank you. So it's been moved by Mr. Lawrence and seconded by Mr. Roberts to nominate James Mayo for a regular appointee member term, a full member, ending December 31, 2020. Any discussion or debate on that? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Quist?
Yes.
Mr. Tackey?
Yes.
Ms. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Lajewski?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Dodge?
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none,
7-0.
Mr. Mayo is appointed as a regular appointee. Is there someone that would like to, Mr. Roberts, would you like to appoint?
So I move to
appoint?
appoint Mr. Dzinski to the Board of Equalization as a regular board member with a term ending December 31, 2020.
Thank you. Is there a second for Mr. Dzinski being appointed to the as the regular member?
Second.
So it's been moved by Mr. Roberts, and was that Mr. Lajewski? Seconded? Yes, and seconded by Mr. Lajewski. Would you like to speak to that, Mr. Roberts? Okay. Any discussion or debate, Mr. Lawrence?
Yeah, well, first of all, I know Mr. Dzeski, and I like him. I think he's totally qualified. However, the other applicant, Tim Beck, has been an alternate on the BOE. He's also a past member of this assembly. And Mr. Dzinski is not, as far as I know. And it makes more sense to me for Mr. Beck to move up to the role of being a regular member rather than having him continue to be an alternate and have somebody who hasn't been on the BOE at all. So I'll be voting against this motion.
Any other comments or discussion? Mr. Mayor?
I would just speak strongly in favor of the motion as presented by Mr. Roberts.
Mr. Tackey, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to side with Mr. Lawrence's opinion on the matter, with experience being a weighing factor in this.
Any other discussion or? Okay, seeing none, clerk, please call the roll on the motion to appoint Mr. Dzinski as the regular member with a term ending December 31, 2020.
Thank you. Ms. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Lajewski?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tackey?
No.
Mr. Quist?
No.
Mr. Lawrence?
No.
Ms. Dodge?
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none?
4-3.
Mr. Dzinski is appointed.
6-5.
I'm sorry, I'm wrong. We have a different quorum. It takes 5, so that motion fails. So I look for a motion for a regular appointee member.
I'll move for reconsideration.
Okay, Mr. Lawrence has moved for reconsideration, and it's been seconded by Mr. Roberts. Okay, thank you. Any discussion, debate? I don't think that we really. Well, we can have discussion, debate. Any discussion, debate on reconsideration? Nope. Clerk, I think we're ready to vote on reconsideration, and
Takes 6.
it takes 6 to, and then it will bring it back in front of us for, of course, another vote.
That's correct.
I would like to make a comment there.
Yes, Mr. Roberts.
I would like to know, I'm sure Mr. Lawrence made that motion because he has something else to say on the matter, and I would like to hear
Anything
that.
else you'd like to say, Mr. Lawrence?
So, he probably can't say it now. I'm saying that's why I want to vote for reconsideration.
All right. Well,
The vote first.
Yeah, we'll vote first. Okay, thank you.
Are we ready?
We're ready. I believe so.
Major?
Yes.
Mr. Quist?
Yes.
Mr. Lajewski?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tackey?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
yes.
Ms. Dodge?
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote?
7-0.
Okay, we have it back in front of us. And what is in front of us is a motion for to appoint Mr. Dzinski as a regular member. Any discussion, debate? Mr. Lawrence?
Well, just explain the motion for reconsideration. We've got to fill this position, and I think I'd rather make it happen tonight than later on. And so, we didn't have enough votes to put in. I don't see either gentleman getting enough votes, and I changed my vote.
Okay. Anything else, or are we ready to vote? Okay, I think we're ready to vote, clerk.
Mr. Tackey?
And this is on Mr. Dzinski being appointed to the full-term member.
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Lajewski?
Yes.
Mr. Quist?
Yes.
Ms. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Dodge?
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none?
7-0.
Mr. Dzinski is appointed to as a regular member, and that takes us to a motion for an alternate appointment member term ending December 31.
We will not need that.
We don't need it
Madam
because he's
Chair.
currently appointed.
That's correct.
There you go. So let me turn the page and see where we are. Mayor, I believe we are already to messages from the Borough Mayor.
Well, thank you. Not too much exciting to present at the moment. We've been wrapped around preparing a budget and preparing for the Sandbox meeting, which is Monday, as you might remember. At noon and 6 o'clock, we'll be talking about a long-term fiscal plan going forward for the borough and specifically impacts on some facilities. So I hope you can make one of those, or just stay tuned. We'll be pushing out reports from that meeting shortly thereafter and using some of that information from the public to help us put together a budget going forward. I do have a regular update on the air quality stats that people are just frequently asking about. So the numbers are for North Pole. This is the entire burn season since this fall through to date, as a matter of fact. And we have had in North Pole 7 stage 1s, and 25 Stage 2 alerts. In Fairbanks, there have been 9 Stage 1s and 4 Stage 2s. So our exceedance days so far are exceeding our Stage 2s. There are 38 exceedance days in North Pole and 4 in Fairbanks. And so it shows that the Stage 2 alerts that we're calling, we're being a little conservative, I think, in how we call those because we're sensitive to the impacts on the community. However, we are having more exceedances than Stage 2s that we're calling, which is problematic for us, obviously. And we're getting into the severe air quality stages as a result. We've sent out 201 letters at this point, and we still have only issued 1 citation. We have 1 other that is queued up that we're still in the process of getting ready to serve. So count that either way you want, 2 citations, I guess, out of 201 warning letters. That's our air quality report. I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Let's see if there are any. I had one. I wanted to clarify that when you say 7 Stage 1 and 25 Stage 2, you're speaking about per day. Those are not alerts that might be multiple days, or are they?
Those are alerts that could be multiple days.
So a Stage 2 alert could
those are
come for 3
days.
days. Are those
Those
days?
are just days. Those are days.
Because I noticed that if we had 38 total, that's more than even our Stage 1 and Stage 2 related. 38 exceedances is...
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Just curious. Thank you. And anybody else have any questions? Yes,
Just in
Mr. Mayor.
response to that, so if there's a chance that the air quality is going to be good, we try to give it the benefit of the doubt. We're only calling alerts when we're incredibly confident, I guess is a way to put it, that the air quality is going to be real bad if we continue burning the way we are. So as a result of that, the air sneaks up on us sometimes and is a little bit worse, or a lot worse, than we were thinking, and we were being conservative with the alerts that we're issuing. And that's indicative in the numbers. I mean, we've been telling people that. Folks struggle with that, acknowledging it because it is painful to not be burning. I totally understand that. But the reality is those are the numbers that we're experiencing.
Well, I have another question. With regards to those, is there an average exceedance per day? I mean, are we averaging an exceedance at 80 or 35?
The numbers are lower
63?
this year, so we're not peaking as high as we have been previously, so we're making progress from that perspective. Yeah, the numbers are generally lower, and the major peaks that we've had haven't hit the numbers that we've seen previously, so there's improvement in the size of that. However, the standard is 35, and our numbers are still hitting like 80, and obviously that's way, way above the threshold.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That takes us to reports of special and standing committees. And Ms. Major, how about I start with you this evening? No report. Thank you. Mr. Roberts.
No comment.
Mr. Quist.
Thank you. The Air Pollution Control Commission met last night, and or rather the day before yesterday, and we got an update from the administration on air quality. It was on the program, much like we just heard from the mayor. Also discussed at the meeting were the results of a half-day workshop that had been conducted regarding the behavioral economics of burning and what kinds of roadblocks people may be experiencing in trying to comply with air quality regulations. There's also a discussion, a refresher of training for the Air Pollution Control Commission about quasi-judicial hearings and ex parte contact and getting ready for their actually functioning in their new role as a quasi-judicial body for variances. Their first meeting where they'll be doing that again is many years ago for the carbon monoxide program. They did that, and there's actually 2 commissioners that were involved with that then, but they'll be doing that now with smoke, and that first meeting will be March 20th, which I believe is a Tuesday. And yeah, it was a relatively short meeting. I think that it was only about an hour and a half. And tomorrow at noon, capital projects and legislative priorities. A committee will be meeting here at the Borough Building.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Kentucky, do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Wojcicki?
No report.
Thank you. Mr. Woods. Okay. Well, that takes us to, do we think we can handle our resolution? So I'm going to pass the gavel since I'm the only member here that's a sponsor of that resolution.
All right, we're going to move to agenda item 16A. It's a resolution number 2018-05, a resolution of support for Costco Wholesale Corporation opening a store in Fairbanks. The sponsors are Assembly members Dodge, Gray, and Cooper. Ms. Dodge, may we have a staff report?
Certainly. This is a fairly straightforward resolution. It's doing just what it says. It's a statement of support, asking, essentially saying, Costco, we would really appreciate you coming to our community. We think that you would bring value, and we want to encourage them to come. The whereases cover things such as the benefits that small businesses and restaurants have derived in the past from Sam's and presumably will derive should Costco come, and that also nonprofits have been impacted by the loss thereof.
All right.
Pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Debate, discussion. Mr. Wojcicki. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Packey and a second from Ms. Major. Mr. Wojcicki.
Does the mover of the motion get priority?
You took it off the consent agenda, so why don't you just go on?
Well, if someone had this as a petition and brought it to me and they said, hey, does Aaron Wojcicki agree with this petition? I would say, yes, I agree with every single word. I'd sign it. And so it's just, to me, I try to separate what I want from what the Borough Assembly does. And so we have a resolution specifically mentioning a specific private for-profit company asking them to come to Fairbanks. And I just think that's a little bit beyond what I would like government to do. Because it's good what you see, but what you don't see is maybe there's someone else thinking about it. There's a whole range of things that could be happening. So I just don't think it's the appropriate role for government. That's all. But I agree with every word in the resolution. So, and yet I'll be voting against it.
All right, Mr. Roberts.
So, having read through this, the first whereas probably needs amending because it's now past tense. I see the problems that could happen with a resolution like this, as Mr. Lejewski brought out. I just don't see any of those with this resolution because it's being very specific not to be specific. And it's just saying we're supporting, we're encouraging. We're not doing anything by legislative fiat. We're not giving them a tax break or a discount. We're not excluding any other companies. We could apply this to every single big business out there that we would love to have come here and set up a business. And we just happen to have a specific circumstance where there's an opening that's already been committed to by Costco to at least look into all this. And so we're just giving them a little bit of encouragement that we would support them moving in without actually making any commitments that anything's going to be done for them. So I think the resolution is probably just fine.
All right, Ms. Major.
So I just want to reiterate that I, with everything that's in the resolution, and I certainly hear the impact that it has on nonprofits, the impact that an increased cost of food is having on families, and so I absolutely agree that some support to some entities to come in and help some folks out is important.
All right, Mr. Tackey.
I too am just going to speak in favor of this resolution, as I think it's a huge void that we need to encourage somebody that's already been looking around and kicking the tires on to come in and fill that position. And so I provide my support and would be interested in being added as a sponsor on there if possible. Thanks.
All right, further comment? All right, as temporary chair, I probably shouldn't say anything. I just want to remind that we do have, as an assembly and as a borough, economic development powers, and this certainly is an economic issue for this community. All right, ready to vote? All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Mr. Tackey.
Yes.
Ms. Major.
Yes.
Mr. Quist.
Yes.
Mr. Lejewski.
No.
Ms. Dodd.
Yes.
And Mr. Lawrence.
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote?
6-1.
All right, I'm going to hand the gavel back.
Okie dokie. And with that, I think we are at a place where we have nothing left to do before public comment. Is that correct? Okay, we're going to take a break until 7 o'clock. We'll be back. Okay, we're going to call our February 8th, 2018, I think I said 2017 earlier this evening. It is still 2018, meeting back to order. And we're going to start with reports from safety representatives. But given that we have a few new people, I'll also do a safety briefing. In case we need to leave due to an emergency, we can go out the double doors in front that you came in. There's a door, a little single door that the lady in the black and white is walking by. You can go out that door. And then over here, there's a door behind this pillar that will take you out. So those are our emergency escapes. So that takes us to reports from representatives. We were going to start with a report from our city of Fairbanks. I saw our mayor here, but I don't see him here now. So we'll move on to the report from the City of North Pole representatives. Mr. Isaacson, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can't believe it's been 5 years, so it's good to be back with you. The mayor has asked me to pass along a couple of items. One of the things that's of immediate significance to the city, besides the air quality, which I'll address in a moment, is Ordinance 2017-21S. He wants me to convey that the dues needed to be appropriated by the cities of North Pole and Fairbanks. North Pole has appropriated. We have approved that in our budget, and so as you consider that North Pole is a yes vote in that ordinance. As far as things in the city, just to let your constituents know that Vet 1 will be in North Pole on February 13th at 11 a.m. at North Pole Assembly of God Church on 5th Avenue. And this event alternates, as many of you know, between Fairbanks and North Pole each month and is a resource center for veterans. So those in need, this is a great organization that provides all sorts of services. And then also he wants me to just let you know that he and I will be heading down to the Alaska Municipal League meetings in Juneau on the 19th through the 23rd. And so if there's items of interest to the borough that as you prepare your legislative priorities, please let us know as well so that we're informed and can speak to those as we go around the halls also. Two other, since I'm on activities as it were, events on the calendar, two other things. This next Thursday on the 15th at 6 p.m., there's going to be ALICE training. This is the active shooter civilian response training. It will be held at 6 p.m. at North Pole Middle School. So you're all invited to that. Our Police Chief Dutra as well as Chief Jukes and the troopers are involved with this. I know the school district has already been involved with this training. So this will be a briefer training time for anybody who wants to come and learn what to do if all of a sudden somebody is very aggressive, has weapons, and what's the proper way to respond and not become a victim. So that again is Thursday, February 15th at 6 p.m. at North Pole Middle School. Then on Saturday, we invite you, Saturday the 17th of February, we invite you back to North Pole at 9 a.m. at the Morningstar Park, which is right behind the charter school, for the Buzz Otis Memorial Junior Dog Mushers Race. Buzz Otis, as many of you know, was very instrumental in promoting dog mushing in North Pole, and as a matter of fact, we're known as one of the top venues in the world for sprint racing. And largely to his efforts and the many volunteers that he harnessed, he unfortunately passed away this year in an accident, and so this race is named after him now. Yours truly is the announcer, so you know it's going to be a fun, exciting time. Actually, the stars of the show will be the children, the young people and their dogs. Then one other thing, I just want to say thank you to the mayor who braved coming out to North Pole Library on the 30th of January. I got there just a minute or two late. They had just started. I could not get in through the press of crowds. You know, if they had been able to cut a hole in that roof, I would have asked somebody to drop me down. But too nice of a roof and didn't want to disturb it. I wasn't feeling well. Jim and Mayor Ward had told me that, hey, you can watch this on Facebook Live. Great invention. So I noticed when I got home and I got the ice pack and everything else, there was 129 other people watching Facebook Live with the air quality. And Mayor, you handled yourself adroitly. I know it was frustrating. And, you know, this is a very serious issue for us. There are some people who are very passionate that we aren't doing things fast enough. There's others very passionate saying, why are we doing this at all? The air quality was terrible when I moved up here in 77, and we relished the fact that ice fog at 20 below, and now you don't see it to 40 below. Who knew it might have been causing a health problem? Oh, well. But at any rate, navigating this, I appreciate the fact that the borough is trying to be considerate of all sides and find a way through this. I have my own feelings. I won't express them at this moment, not appropriate. But just to say, every time that you have one of these stage 2 or even stage 1, I get it on my text. I hope everyone gets the alerts. I never burn wood. I have cords and cords of wood ready to burn. And in the past 2 years, I don't think I burned through a cord. So I'm just saying I'm complying. That's all I'm saying. So thank you for tackling this issue. And I know the Assembly is working diligently on this for the good of all people and all concerns in our community. That's our report from North Pole. Thanks.
Thank you, and I'm sure we all say thank you for complying. Let's see if there are any questions. I don't see any. Thank you. Ms. Dominique, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I just wanted to let everyone know that we are working on our 2018-19 proposed budget. We just passed it on the school board the other night. It's just this thin little packet that we have this year. We reduced everything down to about 30 pages. It's wonderfully built. It took a long time for them to get it together, but this is what you guys will probably get this year as a presentation. It's a great piece of work. If you'd like to get a copy of it, it's on our website. You can download it and get the same thing that I have right here. Also, we're discussing our K-8 out of area attendance for the lottery process for our schools. We have 5 schools that will be available for lottery this year. It does have a little packet here to give you the names of the schools. Arctic Light, Ladd, Joy, Hunter, and Nordell will be our first schools that we're going to start with our K-8 implementation. This year, we're only going to put 7th grade in those schools, and it would be by lottery process. And of course, if you're in that attendance area, you have priority for those schools. It's a choice. If you don't want to go to the K-8 school, you can always go to a regular middle school, which is Ryan. And I believe Tanana will be open also. So if you would rather have your child go to a regular middle school, which is 7th and 8th grades here, you can also keep your kids at those schools. I would also like to let you all know that the school district is in conjunction with the NAACP for Black History Month contest. I guess you say motto this year is science, technology, engineering, and math. And the entries have to be in by February the 12th. And we have kindergarten all the way through 12th grade for the entries. And there's different things that you have to do for the different levels. And if you would like to have your child enter into it, all you have to do is give it to your principal at your school, and their applications will come forward to the NAACP. And I would also like to let you know, I went to a performance, and presiding officer, Catherine. I'm a loss with people's names here lately. Sorry about that, Ms. Dodge. We went to a presentation that was done for the first Friday Black History Month celebration also. And these students did presentations on a congressional bill that was put in place back in 1967. And they had to do a competition with this. And they got national recognition for this play that they did. You can go on YouTube and also see the way that the students have portrayed their impressions of what they found out about these 2 horrific things that happened back in 67. One was the lawsuit that Richard and Mildred Loving, they went to Congress. They didn't plan to do it this way, but they would not let the 2 of them stay married in Virginia. So they did a congressional, and the law was put into place in 1967 for interracial marriage. And these students did an excellent portrayal of it. They told you about the Civil Rights Act and everything that was done with it. And the other one that was done was Billie Holiday. They did a portrayal of Billie Holiday's song, Strange Fruit. And that was about the hanging of African Americans in that time frame. And she was afraid to do it in the beginning, but she became a very renowned jazz singer. And she did this song, and there were so many people in the audience when she first portrayed it that felt the same way she felt about the song and was thankful that she did it. But I just wanted to tell you about the great things that we're doing in our school district. And these students did it on their own. Nobody made them do these. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dominique. Any questions for Ms. Dominique? I had a question and a comment. You said that the students have the Black History competition.
Yes.
And I was wondering when the judging is and if they're presenting or if there's something that parents and students might go to.
Well, we're doing the judging on the 13th of February, and we're going to do it at the Fairbanks Neighborhood Housing Building, and anybody that would like to participate can come and judge the projects. And we're going to do our presentation. I'm not sure if this date is right, but I believe it's that Saturday, which is the 17th. And I'm not sure where that's going to be presented at. It's normally at the J.P. Jones Center, but we haven't got that far yet.
Okay, thank you. And I have to say, I did have the pleasure of watching those student presentations. They were amazing. They were just well written, well directed, well read. Just so impressive for 17 and 18-year-olds. Right? It's like the art, the art we have that from the students that we all enjoy is always so impressive. It's that kind of quality. Yeah. So kudos to the students and to the teachers helping them. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Ms. Dominique. Okay, that takes us to special orders. This is public hearing, and we're going to start with Ordinance 2018-02, which is an ordinance providing for an election for tax cap revision to the Muskox service area. Sponsor is Mayor Castle. It's on page 61 of your packet. Mayor Castle, do you have a staff report?
We do. From Rural Services, Mr. Michael Bradley is here.
Good evening. So each year, service areas are given the opportunity to participate in an election to adjust their tax cap. Muskox Service Area Commissioners initiated a tax cap election request on October 13th, 2017. The Commission held a publicly noticed meeting. Based on the discussion, the Commission's decided in favor of a tax cap increase. The Service Area Commission voted to participate in the tax cap election to increase their tax cap revenue, an increase of $40,000 and $40,500. This concludes my staff report.
Okay. So I'm going to open public hearing on Ordinance 2018-02, which is the election for the Muskox service area. I have Zach Penwell signed up. If Mr. Penwell would like to come forward. Okay. Anyone else that wishes to speak on this ordinance, please come forward and take this empty seat. And give us your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Andy Holland. I've lived at 1058 Piker Road in Muskox subdivision since 1983. I became an alternate member on the Muskox Road Service Area Commission in 2011 and recently became its chairman by default. I'm here to provide the rationale behind the proposed Muskox tax cap election. The Muskox Road Service Area Commission proposed a tax cap election to provide funding for a backlog of projects, including deferred maintenance and repairs. The ability to address these projects has been limited by our current funding level. According to staff at Rural Services, they have no record of the road service area mill rate ever being increased in Muskox. We currently have about 3.5 miles of our 5.1 mile of roads that need topping with D1 material, which costs around $56,000 per mile for a 4-inch thick cap. Additionally, culvert repairs, ditch clearing, and replacing signage will add to the total amount needed to be well over $250,000, which our current funding will not support. We plan to complete these projects as promptly as funding allows, making our subdivision roads safer for residents, visitors, and school buses. Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much. Let's see if there are questions for you. Any questions for Mr. Holland? Yes, Mr. Roberts.
So I believe when you have an election like this that we passed an ordinance a few years ago that the road service area ends up paying for the cost of the election.
Yes.
And did you make sure you calculated that into the amount of money you were receiving and that you'd be spending that much in doing the election?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. We appreciate your service on the Road Service Commission. Anyone else wish to speak on Ordinance 2018-02? Seeing no one coming forward, I'm going to close public hearing. Look for a motion.
Second.
So moved by Mr. Lawrence and seconded by Mr. Tacky. Discussion debate on Ordinance 2018-02. I don't see any, clerk. I think we're ready to vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Tacky?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Lajewski?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Quist?
Yes.
Ms. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Dodge?
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none?
8-0.
It's adopted 8-0. So that takes us to ordinance. Let me find my agenda. There we go. 2018-03, and that is an ordinance providing for an election for Murphy Service Area to assume indebtedness for the remainder of a loan from the Road Service Area Revolving Loan Fund from the Murphy Service Area Yellowknife Differential Tax Zone and for tax cap revision to the Murphy Service Area. The sponsor is Mayor Castle. It's on page 72. Mayor Castle, do you have a staff report?
We do. Back to Mr. Bradley.
The Murphy Service Area Commissioners initiated a tax cap election request on October 11th, 2017. So this one's a little different. So within Murphy Service Area, there's a Murphy Differential Tax Zone. That differential tax zone was created to help pay for a loan in order to construct a road. It really was to construct a road. The road wasn't much there to begin with. And then a few years later, they had a phase 2 of that same project in which they initiated a second loan. I think that loan was taken in about 2015. So the commissioners, going back to this tax cap election request, they held a meeting, publicly held meeting, and based on the discussion, the commissioners decided in favor of assuming the remaining balance of loan number 1, or the 2011 loan is also called, for the DTZ, as well as increase their tax cap. And so they voted on that. The vote passed as far as the commission goes, and they wanted to, they want to assume the remaining loan number 1, as well as increase their tax cap $10,000. What that'll do is that'll allow them to start building up enough money to start putting aggregate on the service area roads that are currently outside of the differential tax zone and be able to increase those. And then by the time the loans are paid off, 10 years down the line, those new roads that have just got constructed will also need aggregate. So they'll already have a tax cap increased and a capital or a fund balance saved up to start resurfacing those roads as well. So that was their reasoning behind this, and that concludes my staff report.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to open public hearing on 2018-03, which is an ordinance providing for an election for the Murphy Service Area. And I have someone coming forward. Let's see. And if there's anyone else, we have an empty seat. Welcome. Your name and address for the record, please. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Ron Moore, and I live at 4992 Vancouver Road.
Thank you.
And I'm a service area commissioner. I'm the chairman. And I want to thank Mr. Bradley for doing the dirty work on trying to explain what we're doing here. And Michael did a good job of that. I worked closely with Michael on this. I'm trying to figure out how we can do this. So I think following up on Michael's background, what we realized when we went to our first public meeting to talk about a tax cap, how we realized how burdened the residents of Murphy subdivision are with their loans. Let me explain a little bit more. The service areas consists of 2 subdivisions: Skylight Heights, which was a borough subdivision about 30 years ago, very good foundation roads, and but they're very seriously in need of surface aggregate. Murphy subdivision their entry road is 3 miles from us. We're not contiguous, and
So the 9010 grant allowed them to improve 1.5 miles of road. But at the time, we decided to let them share the burden of that themselves with the residents. And when we went to talk about a tax cap increase to essentially make sure we could do our basic maintenance plus service side of it, realized what a burden that was for them. So the concept to refinance essentially loan one across the whole service area, and then that pays off in 3 years. We can start then working on our service aggregate. That leaves them with about 3 mils lower than what they're paying now to continue their loan number 2. So that's all I can add. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if there are questions for Mr. Moore. It's Mr. Lawrence.
Mr. Moore, it seems to me that one subdivision is going to be assuming indebtedness, some of the indebtedness of the other subdivision. And I kind of understand why, but do you have any, I mean, this is, all we're doing is approving the ability to have an election on this issue, but the subdivision outside of the differential tax zone, do you think the residents there are likely to support this tax increase? Well, that's certainly been a question in our minds for the whole process. I'm hoping they do. Those that did testify that I talked to, not majority by any means, were supportive of the concept. Even though they're not in that subdivision? Well, and that gets back to a kind of philosophical question about projects in subdivision in service areas. When and we are probably the only one that is separate subdivisions. That should that be solely the responsibility of a subdivision, or is that a service area wide responsibility? And I think it can go either way. And obviously, we went one way originally with letting those residents of that subdivision assume the burden of both of loans. But I think it could be argued that projects like those road improvements could be considered a service area wide project. All right, thank you.
If I might, it seems like I recall in the staff report for last week that the people that had the differential tax cap had actually paid quite a while without having a road to even receive service on. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So there's some getting stuff coming out in the wash.
Well, and then when the differential tax zones was formed and each of the loans were proposed, the commission tried to figure out how much money they paid in that they hadn't been able to benefit from, and we transferred those funds to they pay for their loans. So we figured it was about $17,000. So that helped reduce their loans anyway, and that was how we dealt with that.
Super, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your service and for coming down and talking with us. We have an empty seat. If anyone else wishes to speak on 2018-03, your name and address for the record, please. Welcome.
Steve Lamford, 5041 Vancouver Road. Strictly in support of getting this election to occur. I moved to the subdivision with my wife 20 years ago, primarily with the basis of good roads, and we would like to keep that as an attractive part of the subdivision. So at that point, I say thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if there are questions for you, Mr. Lamford. Seeing none, thanks for coming down and chatting with us. Anyone else that wishes to speak on this ordinance? Seeing no one coming forward, we're going to close public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Cooper and seconded by Mr. Tackey. Discussion or debate on ordinance 2018-03. It looks like we're ready to call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tackey?
Yes.
Ms. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Quist?
Yes.
Mr. Lajewski?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Dodge?
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none?
8-0.
It's adopted 8-0. And that takes us to ordinance 2018-04, and this is an ordinance amending Chapter 21.28 FNSB Code regarding criteria for no other adequate source of heat determinations, also known as NOASH. The sponsors are Assemblymember Roberts and Lajewski. It's on page 84 of your packet. There's a proposed substitute by Mayor Castle, and that title is an ordinance amending Chapter 21.28 Fairbanks North Borough Code regarding criteria for no other adequate source of heat determinations and amending borough listed appliances. It's on page 87 of your packet. We'll start with the staff report from Mr. Roberts or Mr. Lajewski. Who would like to start? Mr. Roberts, you have the floor.
So last year, a few ordinances were passed dealing with air quality, and it modified the no other adequate source of heat designation, the NOASH. And the thought process that the majority of the Assembly used at the time was that those who didn't qualify would be able to use the wood stove changeout program to get a stove that would qualify. As it turns out, the EPA put some parameters on there that didn't work with that. So we now have a gap of people who can't burn and yet can't get a NOASH. So this is to fix that, at least the largest part of the gap. And so line 39 is the only modification. And it's basically saying that that in addition to borough listed appliances, any EPA certified appliance qualifies with the NOASH as long as they meet the other requirements that are there. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lajewski. Do you have anything you wish to add as a staff report? Thank you. Mayor Castle, would you like to give a staff report on the substitute?
Yes, we would. It is unfortunate that this gap was created in the original legislation, so we're totally on board with fixing that. We just had some concerns with exactly how that gets fixed, and so that's the genesis of our substitute, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Nick Zarnicki, our air quality manager, for the rest of our report.
Oh, thank you, and good evening. And so some of the changes that were made and some of the work that we did with this ordinance, as you know, there's the complex regulatory structure that we're dealing with borough regulations, state regulations, and then also the SIP and EPA regulations. And so we ran through all of the different traps to ensure that this wouldn't be backsliding, and with some help from DEC, made the determination that this would not constitute backsliding because Ordinance 2017-44, while it's been incorporated into state rules, it has not been approved by the EPA and the SIP yet. And so that's good news for moving this forward. board. However, there are implications with it because during a stage 2, we have the meteorological conditions present that inhibit dispersion and cause some of the worst pollution. And this no ash waiver is the waiver for residents to be allowed to burn during those conditions. And so we want to make sure that we've done our best effort to minimize emissions from those devices. And with the change, the increase in emissions will come from which devices are allowed to burn. Will increase from 2.5 grams per hour up to 7.5 grams per hour with EPA certified devices. So we just wanted to put some sideboards on the ordinance and try to offset some of those emission reductions so that we don't have the increased emissions. The inclusion of the 1998 date, as I talked about in the work session last week, is to match what is written in the Targeted Airshed Grant, so that there's no gap, and it also so that the oldest devices would hopefully still be changed out for cleaner burning devices. The addition of the catalyst is meant to ensure that those devices are operating at their peak performance. Catalytic stoves are equipped with a ceramic or metal honeycomb device, which is the combustor catalytic converter, that's coated with a noble metal such as platinum. And the catalyst material reduces the ignition temperature of the unburned VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, and carbon monoxide in the exhaust gases through selective chemical reactions, and thus augmenting their ignition and combustion at normal stove operating temperatures. The increased combustion efficiency is what leads to the lower PM2.5 emissions. And as the catalyst performs, the noble metals are consumed, resulting in decreased performance over time. And the decrease in performance is dependent on many variables, which includes the make and model of stoves, catalyst surface area, the noble metal used, the materials burned, frequency of operation, and additionally, I guess in addition to the normal degradation, catalyst performance can be dramatically reduced due to improper operation that causes the catalyst to become plugged or fouled. And so looking at that 3-year period where we asked for a catalyst replacement, some catalyst manufacturers, and not the wood stoves, but the actual catalyst manufacturers, estimate lifespan between 2 to 5 years, and some additional input from the wood stove industry indicates catalyst lifespan between 2 and 8 years. And so the 3-year period is in the middle there, and that's how we came up with that determination. Also, in speaking with wood stove experts, they also commented on some non-catalytic stoves, mentioning that those emission reduction features also need maintenance. Non-catalytic wood stoves reduce emissions by directing unburned hydrocarbons and carbon monoxide into a secondary chamber, and it mixes with fresh preheated makeup air that further enhances combustion. And so again, it's the enhanced combustion that reduces PM2.5. There's multiple air channels, some with their own controls, coupled with baffles that trap and retain the heat in the top of the firebox to facilitate this combustion. And control degradation for any stove may also occur as a result of deteriorated seals and gaskets, misaligned baffles, bypass mechanisms, broken refractories, or other damaged functional components. And so, we're just looking at really the maintenance of these devices because, as I stated earlier, this no ash waiver allows residents to utilize a solid fuel burning appliance during periods which the meteorological conditions are present to inhibit the dispersion and raise ambient PM2.5 to unhealthy levels. We want to allow folks to be able to use these devices during this time period, but we also have to be cognizant of the air quality problem and try to thread the needle. And in addition to that, we've got to try to comply with this complex regulatory structure. So it's a pretty fine needle that we have to thread. And so it's important for us to take every step to ensure that the devices are maintained and operated in a manner to minimize the emissions. So that's kind of some of the background behind the 3-year catalyst. And then with the fireplaces, again, just to offset emissions, fireplaces were included in the borough-listed appliance. And by eliminating fireplaces from that list, they are relatively high-emitting, inefficient devices. And we can see some emission reductions by taking those off the list. And that concludes my staff report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to open public hearing on Ordinance 2018-04, which is an ordinance amending Chapter 2128 regarding the no ash. I've got 3 people signed up, so we'll start with that list. I was wondering if the 3 people signed up, I have Jesse Davis, Tara Gildner, and Christine Robbins, but we have a young lady with a couple of little kids. Would you mind if you would like to speak, would you like to go first? If you would like to, you're welcome to. I would imagine that you guys would anyone mind? I'm just thinking that bedtime is kind of coming. And so if you'd like, you may come up. And Jesse Davis, if you'd like to take the other chair. We'll ask you to our friend and got a pretty handy helper there. Yeah. So if you give us your name and address for the record, please. I'll have 3 minutes.
Sure. My name is Jennifer Williford, and my address is PO Box 89712, 99708. And I actually think that some of you may be familiar with me already. I think I emailed just about everybody I could. I grew up in Fairbanks. I burned wood my entire life. There's always a wood stove in my home. It's part of my culture. It's just ingrained in me. I am a responsible wood burner. I split stack and store. The boys and I have put up a wood shed. I have 2 EPA certified stoves now. And when I went in to apply for the waiver, it was because I was very naive to the process. I'll be honest, I had no inkling when I asked my friends and family and talked about the burn ban. The consensus was, oh no, that's not real. They're not doing that. Having kids, you want to do the responsible thing. And you want to teach them that, no, we're going to follow the rules. So we didn't light our stove during the ban, and that resulted in some pretty cold kiddos. So with some encouragement from many different people, we got our paperwork together, photos, Burnwise quiz, the whole 9 yards, notarized paperwork, and we went down to the office, and within minutes we were denied our waiver. I have a very small older home. The difference between using wood heat and not is the difference between kiddos in 5 layers around a dangerous heater to keep warm and being warm. I mean, everybody here knows when you go camping, you're sitting around a fire, there's a difference between being cold and being warm. And so I think there's a variety of different appliances Alaskans use to heat their homes. It's inherited that we're very creative. I think everybody wants cleaner air, which is why I had an EPA certified stove to start with. I think what bothered me the most is I was standing there just very discouraged. And when I looked at her and I said, what do I do? She said, well, we have this program, but you don't qualify for that either because you already have an EPA certified stove. So again, I looked up at her and I think at that point I was probably tearing up and trying to be pretty stoic because my boys were with me. And I was like, so what do I do? And she said, have you thought about an electric heater? And so I don't know if any of you have children, but growing up here, I can't tell you how many hazards and what a dangerous situation that is. The first thing you read when you talk about electric heaters is to keep them away from children. You can't play next to a heater with a wood stove or an electric heater. Yesterday, I thought it was interesting that there was an interesting story in the paper about somebody trying to fill a propane stove inside. So people are going to, when they're given that option of you have no option, try something else, they're going to resort to what they can afford and what they have in their means, and that could be dangerous. And so I really am here trying to be the benefactor of those who are on a single income, low income, just that's your means. It's a safe, responsible way to heat. And I don't know if anybody knew that they were being told you have no choice. And so it's $1,000 to the borough, $1,000 in electric bills, or $1,000 to Home Depot. So I put a new wood stove on my Home Depot card, and that's where I'm at.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Let's see. So before you leave, let's see if there are any questions for you. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks for filling this in. I'm a little confused on this, so I do have a couple of questions. Were you issued a temporary no-ash form?
I was, but that wasn't my first option. That was kind of after standing there and she said, so here's the deal. You don't qualify for this other program. What I could do is if you would like, you could have a 10-day waiver to figure things out.
Okay.
She did give me that 10-day waiver and I totally appreciate that. But the problem is, when you're on a budget and you're on an income and trying to find another appliance in 10 days is really unrealistic. I did it. I made it happen. I wasn't going to let my kids be cold, but there has to be more resources. There has to be options for people. It can't just be, you have no option. How about an electric heater? So I was given that 10 days, but realistically, for some people to find a new way to heat their home, that can take months. It's a huge item that you go ahead and you budget in unless you have a crisis where a furnace quits. And then you're left where I'm at. You're hoping you have a secondary source of heating your home like wood to offset that. But it was really disheartening to me that that was a financial way for me to heat my home. It was a safe way to keep my home. My kids were warm, and it was already an EPA certified stove. So that was, I understand that the 10 days is nice. I appreciated it, but I don't know. I just feel like there should have been more options.
During that 10 days, didn't you come back in and get another temporary no-ash? It's still effective through today and continuing forward?
No, the temporary no-ash I was given was because I was asked to apply for the variance.
And so until your variance is adjudicated,
yes,
you have a no-ash form that's valid. You've never had one day that you could not burn.
When I called and asked for the variance paperwork, and I asked for it the day after, like I was in the office, nobody got back to me. I left a message. It was on the 10th day that my waiver, it was 11th day that my waiver ran out. I called and said, nobody got back to me. I have a stove in my Home Depot cart. I'm going to purchase it. And he said, well, just go to the certified dealer. He'll tell you if it's okay. And I said, I'm going to be honest. It's from Home Depot. And he's like, well, I'll look into it and see. So he put me on hold. He looked into it. And he said, that stove will be fine. How about you go ahead and fill out the variance paperwork, and then you'll be okay to burn until you get your wood stove installed. That's what I was told.
And so you've had a temporary waiver since the first day you came in.
I have had a temporary waiver since the first day I came in, but I had to purchase a $1,200 stove in order to make that happen.
Has the borough ever issued you a warning letter or told you needed to do that?
So my choice is wait for the letter, not follow the law, or come in and do the right thing and apply for the waiver and then be denied.
But you weren't denied. Your decision hasn't been made yet. You've been given a temporary
I was given a temporary no-ash waiver with conditions that if I applied for the variance, and when I called, the variance wasn't even an option at the time. He didn't. I was told that it was a very difficult legal proceeding. That was something I really needed to think about getting myself into. And I said, listen, I have this stove. I'm just going to put it on my credit card. I want my kids to be warm. And he said, okay, but go ahead and fill out the variance paperwork, and that will cover you until your stove is installed. So yes, I have been able to burn, but there was a time in there that I wasn't because I was obeying the laws that were in place. And then when I went in there to legally apply for a no-ash waiver so I could burn, I was told I didn't qualify. Go home and heat with electric heat. So for 10 days, I was totally petrified. What am I going to do? I went out and I put another expense on my card. Nobody got back to me and said, hey, stop, don't do that. Let's see what else we can do.
Do you have any other, any other questions for Ms. Wilford? I didn't mean to interrupt you, since I think we've,
No, I understand, but
yeah. There might be maybe a conversation there. Should occur. Anybody else have any questions from Ms. Wilford? Seeing none?
I have one.
Well, yeah.
No, for her.
Yeah, I know, but you would need to do that maybe after she's off the dais.
Well, a big question that y'all could be asking her. Is your new stove installed?
Thank you very much. So our second, Tara Gildner, if you'd like to take the empty seat. Mr. Davis, thank you for your patience. Your name and address for the record, please. We'll have 3 minutes.
Jesse Davis, 4021 Lakewood Loop, North Pole. I'm here because of Mayor Castle's proposed substitute, specifically lines number 41 through 43, where it talks about the catalyst. We heard a lot of science about that. My question is, I have a 2015-16 Blaze King Ashford 20.1 catalytic stove. meets all EPA emission limits since their rules went into effect last May 15, 2015. That stove puts out approximately 1.23 grams per hour particulate, and that's on a medium-high burn. I checked with the warranty. I have all the copies here from the actual manufacturer's book. I checked on the warranty on that catalyst converter in that stove, and it is 6 years. Now, because my stove has been turned off now for almost 2 weeks because I followed each and every burn ban that we've had in North Pole, approximately 38 days total, according to the mayor, I went by Woodway to get the gasket so I could clean the catalyst, because catalysts don't have to be replaced every 3 years. What they need to be done is serviced every year, cleaned. It's a $15 gasket. It's a $275 catalyst for my stove specifically. And a young, helpful man right there at Woodway, he asked me, he said, well, did you send in your warranty paperwork on your stove? I said, absolutely. He says, oh, well, your warranty has actually been extended. It's 10 years. Now, the 3 lines you have in here is telling me that if I had a no-ash, which I do not, I have a stage 1 waiver, but if I had a no-ash, I probably could get one right now because I have about 1.5 inches of ice at my back door that's keeping me from opening my fire egress at the rear of our home. However, my finances are none of the borough's business. That's between me and the IRS. So my point here is 10-year warranty on a catalyst. Yes, I understand it will degrade over time, but the manufacturer is warranting it for 10 years, and yet you want me to replace it every 3. That's unacceptable. It really is. The gasket, $14.75. It takes about 2 minutes to get the catalyst out of the stove. If you're not familiar with them, they're about this large. At least in my stove, they're not very big. Very easy to clean, just have to be careful with. What I think is that you guys are putting some unrealistic rules on an already very onerous process to get a new ash in this bowl to begin with. And now, how are you even going to do this? How are you going to check? Are you going to require that a certified dealer such as Woodway installs a new one? I don't know.
Good training, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Davis?
I have a question for Stanley.
Oh, if it's a technical question related to this discussion, sure.
And so I just, because it was something we talked about last week, and so I guess last week we talked about that there is, the borough will replace or has funding to replace the catalyst. And so what is that just, can you maybe just briefly describe that process? Because I think it's important to this discussion.
Yes, catalyst replacement and stove repair is an eligible expenditure under the Targeted Airshed Grant, which is the federal funding where we have the majority of our change-out money at. And it funds up to $750 for repair of the stove or replacement of the catalyst.
And that anyone is eligible for that?
Correct. And they would still have to go through our prioritization program, but it would be folks that are within the air quality control zone.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Wojcicki.
I have a technical question, too. And so I remember at the work session you mentioned kind of like the decline curve of efficiency. How does cleaning the catalyst fit into that?
Cleaning of the catalyst, it basically just cleans all of the material off the catalyst, so there's more surface area that's available for the chemical reactions. And so in an instance where your catalyst was dirty or plugged, it would increase the performance efficiency.
So if one was routinely cleaned, and I also have a question, how often should it be cleaned? And it probably depends on use, but if one was routinely cleaned within the manufactured warranted life, should it still work, effectively during that period of time?
Yes, absolutely.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming down. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So in the empty seat, we have Christine Robbins. Ms. Gildner, your name and address for the record, please. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Tara Gildner. My address is 877 Linwood Way, North Pole. I wanted to bring up a couple of laws I think a lot of people are forgetting or totally disregarding on purpose. And I wanted to mention that when rules that regulate our rights are made into non-voluntary laws, you are taking people's rights away. It's not a question in citizens' minds that our rights have been violated, and multiple have been violated. And a lot of people bring up the U.S. Constitution, right to private property, in which you are supposed to be given either a money source to compensate, not just to whether you have to replace something or not, but also for the time that you are not allowed to use it. The deprived time for using that should also be compensated. And since these laws were made with no way to compensate people, it's already violating the U.S. Constitution, but it's also violating Article 17 of the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. So you're violating human rights as well as the U.S. Constitution. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say you. I know that a lot of these laws get passed, and you guys follow a lot of the rules, but I'm worried that we forget what laws we're breaking in trying to make new rules. And we understand that we all want cleaner air, and we understand that we need to work together on this. But I think a federal government included in this is quite an overreach, and the way we have constructed these laws is it violates too many of our rights. And so we need to make this, in the best of circumstances, I would suggest that we could maybe take out the federal government and make this to be only a state or local. Because when you try to have people make laws that live in other states, they do not understand our circumstances, and they also do not feel that they are reliable for us when they live so far away. We need people here making rules here. And there are people that have come up with certain solutions that could help, and we appreciate that. Anybody that burns wood, I mean, everybody I've ever grown up with, we all try to burn with the driest wood possible. It helps us. It makes less work for us. We don't have to haul as much. And so I just ask people to consider this, and I'll stop there.
Okay, let's see if there are questions for you. Mr. Quist.
So on the resolution, or rather the ordinance before us and the proposed substitute from the mayor, I could infer your opinion, but do you have an explicit position on it?
As far as this ordinance, I don't have a whole lot of position. I do see that it to me is a little bit better, but it does not provide us the security and safety that we need as a society to even survive in our cold weather. So it's helpful, but it's not enough.
If I could follow up, do you have a specific recommendation or a different course of action to address the problem or the matter?
One, as far as like what you guys provided, the waiver for her, the last lady that spoke, for 10 days, why are you guys trying to limit that? Because it should be, if nothing else, it should be an offer until something is actually taken care of. It shouldn't be a limited offer. People don't have time to come in every 10 days. Are you kidding? I mean, how are people going to work their normal jobs when they have to interrupt themselves all the time to come in and ask for things from the state? And it takes state and federal government so much time to process. So a lot of times, like she pointed out, you run out of time, and then you're left either having to be a criminal or having to be cold. So neither of those are good options.
So my question was a little bit different. I don't want to necessarily take more time right now. We can maybe talk later. I was more, when I asked about, when I was referring to the problem, I was referring to the air pollution problem, and not the space heating aspect, which is also a consideration.
Would you state your full question again?
I guess so. I mean, the intent, as the proposed substitute here to this ordinance, makes it a little bit more restrictive to get a no ash. The primary rationale is that it will help mitigate air pollution on days when the air pollution is really bad due to the weather and the temperature inversion. So it sounds like you're against it, and I'm just curious if you had an idea as to something else we can do to help solve the air pollution problem, because if we just make it so that anybody can get a no ash basically any time for an indefinite period of time, then we're just going to aggravate the problem. So I was just curious if you had a thought on it.
I said you would offer it for an unextended, or that for an you could offer it until you could come up with a solution that would actually not violate our rights, as far as coming up with a way to pay for it. But until you come up with a way to pay for something for them, there shouldn't be any regulation on them, because you've not provided compensation for them until you have come up with a solution to provide the compensation. So you can't put a 10-day restriction when you don't know how many days it will take you to provide the compensation.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Oh, before you go, many moons ago, I was supposed to note that Matt Cooper had joined us at about 7 o'clock. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So the question would be, I think in the previous testimony from the lady, did you miss the point that she came in and got a 10-day temporary no ash to buy time to make a decision, and when she made her decision and came back in, she was issued a no ash that is still in effect today, and exactly what you said is exactly what we did, and allowing her to continue.
I also heard the part where she said her variance ran out.
She doesn't have a variance, and so...
or her waiver,
She said a number of things that I believe it's in the semantics and how you phrase something. She said she was denied a waiver. The implication is that there was no option available to her. When the original waiver was denied, she was issued a temporary no ash to decide what she wanted to do going forward. In other words, we're trying to work with her and trying to accommodate. And exactly as you requested, that she should be able to get an indefinite time period on a no ash instead of being limited to 10 days. That's exactly what we did when she came back in and decided that was the course of action she wanted to take. That's what we did.
Where did she say it ran out?
It didn't. It never has. I'm not sure why she said that. I'm getting a number of phone calls from very confused people, including people from the lower 48 with regard to this, that are saying that the borough is preventing her from burning. And there hasn't been one day that we've done that. So I'm confused, calling us and asking how they contribute money to help her out and whatnot. I don't know. I'm just telling you what we did. And you were confused.
So we're a little skating on the edge of our process here. Our role is to ask you questions, and our role is not to debate with you. And so we're going to be careful with that, because it's about making a safe, respectful place that we all feel good in.
Yeah, I'll just end with one thing, is to say that even giving that waiver or the no ash, even allowing that, does not negate the fact that she did not receive compensation, and it still violates U.S. constitutional law.
Okay, so that's your point. Mr. Lawrence.
Ms. Gilner, do you believe that people should be able to heat their homes the cheapest way possible, no matter what impact on the air quality?
To heat? Yes. Well, considering it's a right. Now, I do understand that air quality is important to a point, but you can't violate one right and say in lieu of another. And you are putting restrictions that aren't even legal. Are you really okay with breaking the U.S. Constitution?
We'll stop everything.
Well, let me ask you, is breathing clean air a right? You have a right to breathe clean air.
You have a right to move wherever you feel you are comfortable breathing. If a doctor tells me that if I've gotten through surgery that I can't go into water, I don't go into water. But what you're forgetting is that the cold air itself is, if you have breathing problems, just the cold air is giving you a hard time breathing. So many people move if they have trouble, and you have the right to move.
Okay. No other question.
Yeah, I think that the question was, it was answered. Was your question answered?
Yeah, I think she answered it. I mean, she gave me her opinion. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? I apologize. It's a delicate balance.
It's okay. I understand. I mean, everybody needs to understand what's going on, so I understand the questions.
Thank you. And thank you for coming down. I don't see any other questions, so thank you. Thank you. So we have an empty seat if anyone else wishes to speak. Ms. Robbins, your name and address for the record, please. You'll have 3 minutes.
Christine Robbins, 1340 Arctic Turn Drive, 99712. I don't have a lot to say. I just want to say I do support this ordinance as a means operating within the confines of where we're at right now. But as a whole, like the previous lady, I would reject it based on what it would require those that would need to sign up to qualify to have to go through, which it's pretty evident that it's based on an economic status. So you can't really even get it unless you're, fall below a certain economic line. And then, so you can't get it if you're middle class, basically. And then you have to go through training and provide documentation and essentially be tracked the rest of your life. You're with that stove. And that's what I object to about the invasion of privacy. So that's pretty much all I have.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if there are questions for you. I don't see any. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming down. Does anyone else wish to speak on Ordinance 2018-04? If no one else wants to speak, you can have 1 minute. So I don't see anyone else coming up, so yes, you may have an additional minute.
My partner just texted me something. I'm going to read it to you.
Okay. Your name and address, so again, please, for the record.
Jesse Davis, 4021 Lakewood Loop, North Pole.
Thank you.
Folks, we really need to find out a better way of doing this. Your truck's sneaking around taking pictures of people's homes. Half the time, you're not even getting the right stack in a photo. Not a good way of doing it. That's invasion of privacy, regardless of where you're taking a picture from. Right? But we need to find a better way of what's going on, who's the real problems are here, who's really putting out the pollution. Since in the last 2 weeks, so we're in stage 2 tomorrow in North Pole till 4:30. With the exception of January 31st, North Pole's been in stage 2 for 2 weeks. Our air's not gotten any better. I'm abiding by the burn bans. I don't need a $500, well, in this case, $1,000 fine. Right? So where's the problem? Because if everybody was to do this and not burn it all, we would still be in a stage. We'd still be in a burn ban. Okay, so we really need to find out what is causing this instead of just targeting the little residential homes.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Let's see if there are any questions for you. Seeing none, thank you. We appreciate you coming back down. Okay, I'm going to close public hearing if no one else is coming back. Okay, public hearing is closed. Look for a motion.
Move to adopt. Second.
So moved by Mr. Lawrence and seconded by a voice down here. Mr. Roberts.
Move the substitute. Second.
So Mr. Lawrence has made the substitute. It was seconded by Mr. Tacky, I believe. So on the substitute, Mr. Roberts.
Yeah, so I'd like to make an amendment. So on line 43, and actually 42, I want to replace in the last 3 years with in accordance with the manufacturer's warranty period.
Second.
And then also line 25, insert the word possible between all and EPA.
Okay. So line 25, insert the word all between, do what?
Word all between, possible between all and EPA.
So it's been moved by Mr. Roberts that we add at the end of line, replace
in the last 3 years with in accordance with the manufacturer's warranty period. Yeah, on my notebook here.
So delete on line 42 in the last 3 years and add, so you're not deleting in. So in accordance with manufacturer's warranty period. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then insert possible on line 25 between all and EPA. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a second?
Second. I also move to divide the question.
Second.
Okay. So it's been moved by Mr. Roberts. I think I've read what he is proposing, and seconded by Mr. Wojcicki, and then it's been moved to divide. Mr. Wojcicki's moved to divide the question, and it was seconded by many, but we'll give it to Mr. Quist. And I'm presuming you want to divide the question between lines 25 and lines 43. Is that correct? Yep. Okay. So that means we have in front of us a divided question.
We need to vote on it.
We need to vote on the question. Thank you. Any discussion on dividing the question before we?
It's not debatable.
Not debatable. It's a good thing we have rule people back here. Okay. Please call roll.
Major.
Yes.
Mr. Wojcicki.
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
No.
Mr. Tacky.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Quist.
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence.
Yes.
Ms. Dodge.
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none?
7-1.
And the question is separated. So who would like to figure out where we're going to start? Do we pick one?
Yes, it should be lines 42 and 43
Okay.
first.
The clerks tell me we'll start with discussing line 42 and 43.
Okay.
And I'm going to let Mr. Tacky speak.
Well, actually, I didn't get to be here for the work session last week, so I didn't get to ask questions correlated to the replacement versus the maintenance of a catalyst. And so I guess I wanted to get a little bit more information from the administration as to why we couldn't have a maintenance structure in there for the catalyst rather than having to have a replacement one, or what the choice was for 3 years in replacement.
And the choice for 3 years on replacement was just based on information that we'd received from DEC, and also it was in accordance with some of the stuff within the NSPS. And the intent of it is to get those devices operating at their peak efficiency, and so replacement or maintenance would achieve that same intent.
I have a follow-up question on that. So if we put maintenance in rather than replacement, would that be deemed as a backsliding from the DEC, or would that probably be sufficient?
No, and to address that question, there are no backsliding implications with this particular ordinance. The introduction of the replacement of the catalyst was simply to try to offset some of the emission increases that would be seen by allowing some of these older EPA certified devices, which can be up to 7.5 grams per hour, whereas right now we're only allowing 2.5 grams per hour, and it's during the times where we have the most pollution in the air. And so that was the background behind it. And yes, I would say that replacement or maintenance would be appropriate items.
One follow-up?
Okay.
It was just related to the catalysts in these stoves. Is it possible that if there was like a 7.5 gram emitting stove and you replaced a different catalyst in there, could it reduce it down? Is that even a possibility or unrelated?
I don't know of any stoves that are 7.5 grams that would have a catalyst because they're typically cleaner than that. And I don't think that it would be appropriate to replace with a different catalyst because they're engineered and designed for the particular stove. And in addition, the new source performance standards under which stoves are certified requires that stoves not be modified. So by doing a modification to the catalyst, you would be in effect voiding the EPA certification on the stove.
Thanks.
Mr. Roberts, my apologies. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Sure. So we asked a lot of questions last time about the 3 years, and it seems like it's just kind of a average number that they tried to pick, a reasonable number. But I realized after the email we got today in this testimony that we actually can pin this down much better by doing it with the manufacturer's warranty period. We get that time frame. It's different per stove, so we'll go with whatever their warranty period is for their stove. So it's more flexible, and so the people who buy the better quality stoves and pay for the better warranty end up getting more time for that. And so I think it's a much more reasonable thing to do than just picking 3 years out of the hat to apply it to all stoves, which is quite a range. So I think I'd ask your support for this amendment.
Mr. Quist.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions probably for staff or whoever wants to respond to them. But so the catalysts, if the manufacturer doesn't offer a warranty, or maybe all catalyst manufacturers do have a warranty, but let's say it didn't have a warranty period, and with its adopted language, it seems to me the way that the amendment's proposed, then it wouldn't be able to qualify for a no ash. So I guess my question is, do we want to have, is it necessary to have a time period in addition to the manufacturer's warranty in the case that there isn't a warranty, or is this a problem that doesn't exist and all of these catalysts have very well-defined warranty periods?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And if we did just change it to warranty, then that would be difficult to implement. And I don't know the answer just off the top of my head as to whether they would be excluded or not. Maybe is something along the lines of per manufacturer specifications would alleviate that.
That's fine for now. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Cooper.
I think Mr. Quist and Mr. Sarnecki raised the same issue I was thinking about, which is I don't know how precise her warranty period is, and perhaps manufacturer specifications or recommendations makes more sense. And so I'm going to move to amend the amendment by replacing warranty period with recommendation or specification.
Is there a second? So, recommendation or specification? Right. So it's been moved by Mr. Cooper and seconded by I think Mr. Roberts, is that correct? To amend the proposed amendment on line 43 to read in accordance with manufacturer's recommendation or specification and delete warranty period. Discussion on the proposed amendment to the amendment. Seeing none, is there objection to adopting the amendment to the amendment? I see none, so the amendment is amended, and we're back on the amendment on line 43. Yes, Mr. Lawrence.
Could somebody read how it's going to read?
Absolutely. Line 41 reads, an EPA-certified appliance manufactured after 1988, and if the appliance has a catalyst, the catalyst has been replaced by a new catalyst in accordance with manufacturer's recommendations or specifications.
So I just want to point out, you said 1988.
Oh, okay, thank you. It should be 1998. Yes, Mr. Lawrence.
So we're saying, as it reads, that if this amendment is approved, that the catalyst has been replaced. But shouldn't it say that the catalyst has been maintained as required by by manufacturer's specifications? I mean, the verb "replaced" throws me a little. We don't want to. What I understand Mr. Roberts' amendment to mean, or to its goal is to not replace catalysts, before they, as long as they're still effective. Right?
I can speak to that. Answer that as the sponsor.
Oh, sure.
So, the maintenance is going to be too hard if you try to do something where they have to bring in proof of cleaning the catalyst. So now we're raising it another level. What the manufacturer's recommendations and specifications are going to be based on their cleaning cycles. And at some point, most of this is going to be taken on their word anyway, but the replacement is much more easily documented than the proper maintenance. And so I think it's much more enforceable and realistic for us to go with the replacement and hope that if people are paying attention to what that date is, they're also paying attention to the instructions that comes with their catalyst for proper maintenance.
All right.
Mr. Tackey, thank you for your patience.
I was going to move an amendment to add in replacement, but after that, or maintenance, but after that comment. But regarding the fact that this wouldn't be backsliding in any regard, I kind of want to insert, so I'm going to move to insert maintained or between been and replaced on line 42.
So you want it to read, the catalyst has been maintained or replaced?
Correct.
Okay.
Amending the amendment.
Is there a second to that amendment? To the amendment? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Mr. Tackey and seconded by Mr. Quist to amend the amendment on line 42 to say the catalyst has been maintained or replaced by a new catalyst. Is there objection to that proposed amendment to the amendment, Mr. Wojcicki?
I object.
Okay, thank you. You want to speak to it?
Sure. Mr. Roberts, I think hit it the nail on the head that it's an interest of simplicity. We shouldn't put that in for people to prove that they're in compliance with the borough trying to enforce compliance. It's too much. But certainly, people should certainly, maintain their catalyst, but let's not put it in the sphere of the borough.
Mr. Lawrence, did I see your hand up? No. Okay. Yes, Mr. Roberts.
So I'm certainly for the spirit of this because it would be good to make sure people understand that they need to maintain their catalyst. I'm just worried about placing it this way and ending up with even more rules that people and more documentation required that people have to do somehow. I'd feel better if it was in there as something that noticed people that there is maintenance required. So maybe a phrase at the end with the recommendations and specifications, like including maintenance, but something that would keep us from going to the level of trying to do enforcement on this type of thing, which I think would just get too much into the weeds. So I don't have a suggestion at this point. I'm saying all that hoping somebody thinks of a good idea.
Mr. Cooper, do you have a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a couple. Mr. Roberts kind of summarized it, but it's as a matter of having like a rule that's easy to follow. Replacement is easier than maintenance. Although I certainly hope that people will maintain their catalyst as well. I guess the other question I had maybe for Mr. Sarnecki is the amendment to the amendment says replace or maintain or replace, and I'm a little concerned about or. Is there the word or as a connector? Is there any type of catalyst that will last indefinitely if it's maintained, or is it going to have a lifespan?
No, they have a definitive lifespan because they do consume the metal on the catalyst during the reaction. And definitive lifespans could be as long as 10 years. They could be as short as 2.
So I don't know, Ms. Dolan, if having an or maintain or replace somehow would allow somebody to circumvent that by continuing to maintain after the lifespan of the.
I think it would. Yeah.
And we're 2 amendments in, so you can't make another amendment.
You have to defeat it. Yeah, Mr. Tacky.
So I'd like to speak to that. I mean, with punctuation and stuff in mind, would manufacturer specifications specify when it would need to be replaced versus maintained? Likely or unlikely?
Likely, but I can't say that I have read every manufacturer's specifications on all the stoves out there.
But they recommend replacement or maintenance, just like changing oil versus changing. Okay.
Any other discussion on the proposed amendment to the amendment? Seeing none, Clerk, I think it's probably we need a vote.
Mr. Cooper?
No.
Mr. Quist?
No.
Mr. Wojcicki?
No.
Mr. Tacky?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
No.
Ms. Major?
No.
Mr. Lawrence?
No.
Ms. Dodge?
No. Would anyone like to change the vote? Seeing none, the amendment fails. So the amendment to the amendment fails, and we're back to the amendment on line 43. I can read it again if you need it. Mr. Quist.
I'd like to move to amend the amendment to add the phrase maintained and between the words been and replaced on line 42.
Okay, so you are changing between on line 42 between been and replaced. You're saying maintained and replaced. Is there a second to that?
Second for the sake of discussion.
Okay, Mr. Tacky, moved by Mr. Quist and second by Mr. Tacky to amend 42 to say been maintained and replaced. Mr. Quist, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I would. Thank you. It may be in the small minority in this now, but I appreciate the last motion from Mr. Tacky, and I did appreciate also that there was a problem with using or as a connector there. And the more that I've been thinking about it, and with the discussion here and report from staff, I think it's very clear, and from testimony as well, it's very clear that maintenance of a catalytic device is very important for its operation. We're talking about allowing people to operate these devices on the days with the dirtiest air. I think that if you're going to be relying on a catalytic device, and that's a part of your ability to get this exemption, that you should be able to maintain it. It doesn't seem like it's necessarily any more difficult to enforce. I could be mistaken on that, and I would like to be enlightened. Most of this is done with affidavit. You can take a picture of when you take it out and clean it. The same. I can't imagine the documentation for if you needed to provide documentation for the maintenance of the catalytic converter would be any more difficult than any documentation of replacing that device. So I don't think that maintenance is too much to ask for this exemption. That's why I'm trying to amend the amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else on this, Mr. Roberts?
So as far as that goes, with a replacement, you're going to have some type of a receipt probably documenting when at least you bought it. If you're doing maintenance, I have a problem enough with my camera, let alone setting it so it's got a date when I take the picture, let alone that date would be correct and that the battery's charging my camera, which would replace a lot of those because they go out quick. And so I don't know if we want to set that up for people to try and prove that they maintained it once a year and give us a date, and then you can get into details that I really don't think anybody wants to get into. What I do think we can do, I'm going to say no for this amendment, but I think what could happen is that the administration could look into the details that we're trying to do on the fly here, dealing with what the manufacturers say about these catalytics, and they could come back with an amendment in the future to change this. This isn't going to have much effect. We've only got 6 weeks left in the season. So we'll have plenty of time if the administration wants to do more research and comes up with a tighter phraseology here than us trying to figure something out on the fly.
Okay, Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Roberts. I think concerning maintenance as being part of the requirement, for this no-ash qualification, I think creates a lot of uncertainty. I don't know how you prove maintenance, as Mr. Roberts said. I just concur with that, and I speak against the amendment to this amendment.
Mr. Quist.
Thank you. Presumably when you replace the catalytic unit, you also have to replace the gasket. The gasket's not going to be usable a second time, and so you're going to be buying a new gasket. So you've got a receipt. That helped with the documentation. I don't think that this bar is so high. Asking to be able to operate a device that literally costs lives, and during a time when it's most dangerous to operate that device. And maintenance is an important thing. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the proposed, pardon me? Yes, Ms. Wojcicki. Thank you.
I agree with the comments of Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Roberts, and just again, for simplicity, I'm a no.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Wojcicki?
No.
Ms. Major?
No.
Mr. Roberts?
No.
Mr. Tacky?
Yes.
Mr. Quist?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
No.
Mr. Lawrence?
No.
Ms. Dodge?
No. Would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none?
2-6.
Okay, we're back to the amendment. Any discussion remaining on the amendment? Seeing none, Clerk, I think we're ready to vote on the amendment.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Major?
Yes.
Mr. Quist?
Yes.
Mr. Wojcicki?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tacky?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Dodge?
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none?
280.
Thank you. The ordinance is amended. And now we're on line 25, where it's been proposed by Mr. Roberts and seconded, I think, by Mr. Wojcicki, to include the word possible between all and EPA certified appliances. To read, the NOAA determination should include all possible EPA certified appliances. And this is in the whereas.
So,
Mr. Roberts.
so when this was originally constructed, we didn't have the amendments that the substitute brings into it, limiting which EPA appliances get this, and so therefore now that we're limiting it, it's not all in the whereas should be modified, and that was a suggestion brought up by legal.
Discussion, debate, questions? Yes, Mr. Tacky.
A little elaboration from legal wouldn't hurt.
So Mr. Roberts' original ordinance had the no ash being applied to all EPA certified appliances. Now you've actually modified that, so it's those manufactured after 98 and with the condition of the replacement of the catalyst. So it's just modifying the whereas to match the ordinance.
It wouldn't be all possible ones because then the ordinance is conflicting with it.
Well, so we had more in-depth language, but we were trying to simplify it. But it's basically all possible without us having an issue, I guess, or a concern. So there is alternative language if you don't like that language that Mr. Wojcicki has.
Mr. Lawrence, is your hand up?
Yeah, I would move to, well, I'll just throw this out to the attorney and then make a motion. How about instead of possible, eligible?
That would work as well.
As well, no better?
No, it's probably better. I see Mr. Tacky's point.
Okay, I will move to amend the amendment to replace the word possible with eligible, adding the words all in EPA.
Okay, so it's been moved by Mr. Lawrence and seconded by Mr. Cooper to amend the amendment to read, whereas the NOAA determination should include all eligible EPA certified appliances. Discussion, debate on the proposed amendment.
I think that's
Yes,
a
Mr.
great
Roberts.
word. Let's do that.
Okay, Mr. Wojcicki, raise your hand up.
It sounds like it's the same thing. I'm not. Is it different in the language of attorneys?
I guess it's probably Mr. Lawrence's suggestion is probably more accurate. So yeah.
From my perspective, it implies that there's some criteria, and you better look at the rest of the ordinance to know which of these EPA appliances, certified appliances, qualify for this new ash.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment, discussion, debate about this amendment to the amendment? Seeing none, is there objection to the amendment to the amendment? So it's amended to eligible. Is there any objection to this amendment proposed? Adding the word eligible on line 25. Seeing none, it's adopted. So we're back to the main ordinance as amended. Pardon me? Substitute as amended. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Quist.
Thank you. I have a question for the attorney. During testimony, there were a couple of legal issues that were raised, concerns that that this proposed ordinance would violate constitutional property rights or somehow also violate privacy rights of borough residents. And I'm guessing the answer is going to be no. They see your signature on this ordinance here, but do you think that there's any concern that this ordinance in any way potentially tramples on constitutional rights?
No, I don't. I think looking at kind of the level of review that courts do with regulatory type takings, which is what this would be for health and safety issues, I think there's a clear legitimate government purpose, and I don't think it goes further than necessary to achieve that. So I think it would be very unlikely that we'd have a takings claim, and I don't see the privacy implication in it either. So,
thank you.
Any other discussion, debate about the substitute as amended? Seeing none, clerk, I think we're ready to vote, and I'll carry that the substitute carries the main motion.
Mr. Wojcicki?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Tacky?
Yes.
Mr. Quist?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
And Ms. Dodge?
Yes, would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none? No, it's adopted 8-0. I'm assuming that the body would like to roll on without a break. Is that correct? Okay. Then we're going to move on to ordinance number 2017-20-1S, and that's an ordinance amending the FY 2017-18 budget by appropriating $178,700 from the general fund balance to the general fund non-departmental for a one-time membership fee to the Fairbanks Metropolitan Area Transportation System Metropolitan Planning Organization. Sponsors Mayor Castle and Assemblymember Lawrence. It's on page 90 of your packet. Mayor Castle, do you have a staff report?
We do, thank you. Unless Mr. Lawrence wants to go first.
I'll let the administration take the lead.
All right, thank you. It's really pretty straightforward. I think you're all aware that FMATS has been moving to try to kind of change their identity a little bit from being hosted at the City of Fairbanks to being a standalone organization. In order to do that, they need some seed money to make that possible. FMATS functions on a reimbursable basis where we get state and federal money coming through to FMATS, but we have to have a nest egg to take care of the expenses up front and then get reimbursed for it. So when I say we, I mean FMATS as a we, which is the City of Fairbanks, City North Pole, Fairbanks North Borough, and the State of Alaska are all partners in this. And so to develop this nest egg of money to get the organization going, a formula was developed whereby the respective agencies would contribute proportional to their population numbers affected by FMATS. And so we come out pretty good in that equation. The amount of money that we would need to contribute would be $178,700. Again, this is a one-time seed money startup. There may be annual dues required long-term. Those would be small. Originally, FMATS was talking about including that in startup, but the FMATS policy board is not sure exactly how much money that would amount to. We would be looking at less than $10,000 a year on an ongoing basis. And so what we'd like to do is just get FMATS up and running independently, and then see how it goes, and then come back at a future date if it shows that we're going to need to contribute annually some small amount of money. So this ordinance is for that startup. I think it's very reasonable, especially in that even the work that's done in the cities, everybody knows the cities are part of the borough, and the city residents are borough residents also, as well as city residents. So our share of the money at $178,000, the city of Fairbanks at $158,000, and the city of North Pole just shy of $11,000, and the state of Alaska is kicking in about half of the pot at $348,000 and change. So I think unless Mr. Spillman, he doesn't want to add anything to that, we're available for questions later. Thank you.
Later, yes, right. Mr. Lawrence, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, this is a metropolitan planning organization consisting of the two cities in the state and this borough to coordinate and plan transportation projects in this community. We get the share that comes to this area, to the interior area, which is basically much of the borough. I believe, and hoping Mr. Fox is going to testify, is between $8 and $9 million a year. So this is an important organization. It makes a lot of important decisions that impact the people in this community long term. And we need to support it, and therefore, I urge its adoption.
Okay, thank you. So I presume that completes the staff report. I'm going to open public hearing on Ordinance 2017-20-1S, and this is the ordinance appropriating money for the FMATs. I have no one signed up. I see who I presume is Mr. Fox coming forward. Your name and address for the record, please. You'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm Jackson Fox. I'm the new director of FMATS. I took over in November 2014. My address for the record is 318 Bias Drive, Fairbanks, Alaska 99712. I'm really not here to provide any testimony. I think Mayor Castle and Assemblymember Van Lawrence covered that topic fairly well, but I would like to make myself available for any questions or clarifications that you have on this ordinance or our transition for our organization from being hosted at the City of Fairbanks to an independent agency.
Okay, let's see if there are questions for you. Welcome. I think our briefing has been pretty complete. I don't see any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming down. And congratulations on your new position. With that, I'm going to close public hearing as I don't see anyone else coming forward.
Move to adopt.
So it's been moved by Mr. Lawrence and seconded by Mr. Cooper. Discussion or debate on this ordinance? Yes, Mr. Cooper.
I want to thank Mr. Williams for his very speedy calculation of its impact on fund balance last week. It's minimal.
Okay. Thank you for that. Mr. Lawrence.
A recent member, longtime member of this assembly, Guy Satley, was the assembly representative on FMATS for many years. And if he were here, I am quite confident that he would be very much in support of this ordinance, because he was very much in support of that FMATS, from his perspective, should have always been an independent entity and not as dependent upon the city as it has been. So for what it's worth, I didn't get a chance to talk to Guy, but he's told me in the past he's very much in favor of this process.
Thank you. Any other comment? Yes, Mr. Roberts.
Yeah, I think this is an important step for FMATS, and it will lead to better organization. This will get them the funding to kick things off, and I support this.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote, Clerk.
Thank you, Ms. Major.
Yes.
Mr. Wojcicki.
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Mr. Tackey.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Quist.
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence.
Yes.
And Ms. Dodge.
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none? 0. It's approved 8-0. And that takes us to Ordinance 2018-05, an ordinance amending FNSB Code 3.24.050 regarding Assembly Road Service Area Committee. The sponsor is Assemblymember Roberts, and it's on page 98. Assemblymember Roberts, do you have a staff report?
You bet. So when we were getting a lot of funds from the state for our grant programs, or funding programs for the roads, and people would apply for them, we had a scoring matrix, and we played with it a lot on our SAC to try and fine-tune it to basically to help it get spread out so that more road service areas could take advantage of it and to give more chance, for example, to smaller projects. That was one of our emphasis. We tweaked it. But it hasn't been played with in the last, I don't know how long, 3 or 4 years, because there hasn't been any money from the state. So people submit projects and they do get scored, but it doesn't seem to be a big issue how they get scored right now, though they do continue that process, and hopefully one day some money will be freed up for that. So I don't think that we need a required meeting every year to approve the matrix and modify it. So I did leave in there that if any member of our SAC wants it brought forward, that it will be that year, and then that'll take care of it for when things get active again. We can take a look at it again, and I'm sure if we do get active again, who's ever chair at that point probably will want to bring it forward and have at least people look at it once they see how much money we have and how that money is being allocated with the current scoring matrix.
Very good. Thank you. So let's see. That concludes our staff report. So I'll begin public hearing open on 2018-05. I don't have anyone signed up. I don't see anyone coming forward, so I'm going to close public hearing. Look for motion.
Move to adopt.
Second.
So it's been moved by Mr. Cooper and seconded by Mr. Lawrence. Assemblymember discussion, debate, questions? Yes, Mr. Cooper.
I've been a member of RSAC for the last 2 years, and I support this ordinance. We've gone through a couple exercises where we've had the whole committee come down here and meet just to approve a matrix, and it's kind of time, I wouldn't say a waste of time because there are other things that go on too, but it's, might not be necessary. So this is a good step.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, Clerk, I think we're ready to vote.
Okay, Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Major.
Yes.
Mr. Quist.
Yes.
Mr. Lojewski.
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Mr. Tacky.
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence.
Yes.
And Ms. Dodge.
Yes, would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none? It's adopted 8-0. And that takes us to consideration of calendar unfinished business, of which we have none. Another bite at the citizens' comments, Apple, and this is for items not scheduled for public hearing. We can open it. We have no citizens in the room, so we will close it. And that takes us to consideration of calendar new business, ordinances to be referred, of which we have none. And it takes us then to another citizens' comments. We still have no one in the room. So we will move to assembly member comments. Unless give the mayor another bite at the apple, but let's start with Ms. Major last time, so let's start with Mr. Tacky.
I have no comment, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Lojewski.
Come back to me.
Yep. Ms. Lawrence.
Have no comment.
Okay. Ms. Major.
I may or may not be here next week, depending on what happens in the next few hours. So I'll certainly let you all know tomorrow as to whether or not I'll be here.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Lawrence.
A question for Ms. Major. I mean, I know you're referring to the possibility of a federal government shutdown. And my initial reaction is, since you work for the federal government, shutting down should make you available. Can you explain to us why you might not be available?
Well, I think the Senate is expected to vote shortly, and then
It's shut down.
Well, yes, except for procedurally, the Senate is set to vote again. I think about 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, followed by a House vote. So there's a lot of folks that are hopeful by the time we show up to work tomorrow, the whole event will be over.
Yeah, but no, my question is you're saying that if the government is shut down, you're not going to be available. You may not be
So
available.
if the government shut down next week, I will be here. If Congress passes a budget tomorrow, I will not be here next week.
Okay, so backwards what we thought.
Yeah, so depending on what happens, I may or yes.
Okay, maybe traveling or not.
I may be traveling next week if we have money to travel.
Okay,
So, sorry, I was trying to.
Yeah, we need
Thank
one.
you. It's been a long day.
Okay, Mr. Roberts.
Nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Quest.
One thing I omitted from my report on the Air Pollution Control Commission meeting at the beginning of the meeting was it was actually very well attended by citizens. That we had, I think, at one point maybe 15 people, and it was a pretty short meeting. They all stuck around, so or most of them. We had no fewer than 12 people at any point, which I think is, for a little meeting without a whole lot on the agenda, was pretty encouraging. So,
super. And Mr. Cooper.
No comments.
Thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Lojewski, thank you.
I'm ready now.
Okay.
I wanted to thank the folks who came in and testified on ordinance 2018-04. And I want to say, I felt that they all came up here in good faith and just gave their perspective. And just in case, for the mayor, it felt like some of your questions were a little bit hostile towards them. I don't think that's what you intended, but just point it out.
Okay.
That's all for my comments.
Thank you. I have no comments, and I was going to give the mayor another bite because you were not on the air, I think, for your report. Is there anything you would like to report on the air at this time?
I don't want to appear to be hostile, but I am annoyed that I'm getting a number of calls, emails, etc., that the borough is not allowing a person in our community to burn, that we have stopped this person from being able to do something. And I'm not sure how everyone is getting that understanding, but it's far and wide, and it's discouraging because in the case that's being referenced, there was not one day that this person was not eligible to burn. And we are not. We are stopping her. We are sensitive to the situation, and we've responded to the situation. And we've put that out to folks as politely as we could, but it's still coming back, including today, that we are not providing a waiver, that we are not allowing this person to burn, and this person is not able to keep their house warm. And that's not the case. And so it upsets me when I keep hearing that, when it's not the case. And folks are trying to help out. I mean, we've got a darn good community here. And when our community hears of someone in need, they chip in, and they pull their wallet out, and they help. And there are folks that want to help here because the borough's being so bad in not allowing this person to have a waiver. And this person has a waiver, and there hasn't been one day that they haven't been able to burn. And you listened to testimony this evening, and it was quite confusing. I don't find the situation confusing at all. But the second person that testified was confused and was repeating that we were not giving the previous testifier a waiver because she was confused from the previous testimony. So I'm just trying to make it clear exactly what happened here. And it was really very straightforward. And I know it can be an emotional situation for folks, and I'm sorry that it can be. So we try to be as helpful and sensitive as we can be, and we try to find solutions, which includes issuing temporary no ashes until someone makes a decision with what they want to do. And then if their decision is to apply for a variance, we do another temporary no ash until the variance gets adjudicated. I don't know what more we can do, unless you want to change the code. So thank you.
Thank you. I hadn't meant to reopen the issue. It has been. So any questions of the mayor, or are we... We appear to be. I have to read you a couple things. So much for being adjourned. Almost there. So Friday, February 9th, the Capital Projects and Legislative Priorities Committee will meet at noon in the Chismar Conference Room, which I believe is on the second floor. And Thursday, February 15th, there will be a special assembly meeting at 5:30 in the Assembly Chambers, and the Finance Committee meeting and the Committee of the Whole work session will immediately follow. With that, we're adjourned.